All right, so we're diving deep into mineral processing engineer interviews today.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of resources from RoleCatcher, career guides, interview guides, like the whole shebang. We're going to break it all down so you can really ace those interviews.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of candidates going into these interviews don't really have a solid understanding of what the job actually is. Before we even get to the questions, let's break down what a mineral processing engineer actually does.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. It's got to be more than just digging stuff out of the ground, right?
Exactly. It's kind of like being a detective, You're using science and engineering to, unlock these secrets inside mineral ores. You're figuring out how to separate what's valuable from the waste and doing it in a way that's good for the environment. It's a puzzle, and it takes you everywhere, from labs to mine sites. You're working with all sorts of different people.
Wow, so brains and boots on the ground. Now, I'm curious, what kind of person does well in a role like this? Because it sounds pretty intense.
You're not wrong. It can be. Long hours, sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere. And you're always solving problems, sometimes on the fly. But the rewards are big too. You're literally helping to build the world. I mean, everything from what's in our phones to our cities, that all starts with mineral processing. And the salary's great too. RoleCatcher's Career Guide says the median salary for mineral processing engineers is way higher than other types of engineering.
That's a great point. Got to weigh the pros and cons before you jump into the interview process, right? Speaking of interviews, let's get down to it. What's the first question they're going to hit you with?
Almost always. What led you to become a mineral processing engineer? That seems pretty basic. But this is your chance to show them you're actually passionate about it, not just reciting something you memorized.
So how do you make your answers stand out?
Think about what really got you interested in the first place. Was it rocks when you were a kid? Some crazy project you did in school? Or even like a documentary that opened your eyes to this whole world of minerals? Make it personal and let that enthusiasm show. This is also where RoleCatcher's AI can give you an advantage. Their resume builder actually helps you pinpoint what parts of your experience and skills show your passion best.
That's so cool. It's like having your own resume expert. Okay, so you've got them hooked with your passion. What comes next?
They're going to want to see if you can solve problems. You'll probably get a question like, how do you approach problem solving in mineral processing? They want to see how your brain works.
Gotcha. So it's not about knowing the right answer. It's about how you get there.
Exactly. And here's where having an example ready to go can really make you shine. Think about a tough challenge you faced. Maybe a processing plant wasn't hitting its targets, or you had a new type of ore that was giving you problems. Walk them through what you did, how you figured out the problem, got the data, analyzed everything, and then actually fixed it.
I can see how that would be way better than just saying, I'm a good problem solver.
Right. They want proof, not just words. And don't be afraid to get technical here. Talk about specific tools and techniques that you're comfortable with, whether it's software for modeling or statistical analysis for optimization.
So get into the specifics, show them you know your stuff. What about being nervous in the interview? Can RoleCatcher help with that?
Absolutely. Their AI feedback is amazing for that. You can practice answering questions out loud, and the AI analyzes what you say, gives you tips on how to be clear, get to the point, and even how your voice sounds, like a virtual interview panel right in your pocket.
That's awesome. We've talked about passion. We've talked about problem solving. What other big things should people be ready for?
Experience is huge. Be ready to show them what you accomplished. You'll almost certainly get a question like, what experience do you have with process optimization?
Okay, so how do you make your experience sound impressive without sounding like you're bragging?
Talk about what you actually achieved. Did you boost the recovery rate for a certain mineral? By how much? Did you find a way to get the processing done faster or use less energy? Numbers are your friends here. They back up what you're saying and show them you get the big picture.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. And if you can tie your accomplishments to specific projects, even better. Let's say you worked on making a gold leaching circuit more efficient. Don't just say you optimized it. Talk about the actual changes you made, what challenges you had, and the positive impact it had.
That makes a lot of sense. Paint a picture for them.
Yes. And use numbers. Did you cut waste by 10%? Increase output by 15%? Those numbers will stick with them.
This is great advice. I feel like we're just getting started, though. What else have you got for us to help these candidates really shine?
Well, one question that sometimes trips people up is, how do you stay up to date with new technology and developments in mineral processing?
That's a good one. It's a field that changes fast. How do you convince them you're not going to fall behind?
It's about showing you're committed to always learning.
Yeah.
Are you someone who reads all those industry journals? Do you go to conferences to see what the latest breakthroughs are? Are you part of any online forums or groups about mineral processing?
So it's not just about knowing the buzzwords, it's about showing them you're actually interested in how the field's growing.
Exactly. And mention any courses or certifications you've done to improve your skills. And don't be afraid to nerd out a little. Talk about some exciting new tech that's caught your eye.
I like that passion is contagious. It shows them you're invested in the future of mineral processing.
And this is another place where RoleCatcher's AI can help. Their platform gives you personalized career advice, and it can actually recommend specific resources, courses, even professional organizations that make sense for your goals and the jobs you're applying for.
That's like having a custom career roadmap. I love it.
It's a really powerful tool. Before we wrap up this part, let's talk about one more question that tests your ability to handle pressure and tough situations on the job. How do you prioritize competing demands and projects in your work?
That's a big one. Mineral processing has so many moving parts. How do you show them you can juggle it all without dropping everything?
It's all about showing them you have a system. Do you live by your to-do list? Use project management software to keep things organized. Have a way of deciding which tasks are most important and urgent.
So you're not just winging it.
Right. And again, having a good example ready to go can really make your answer come alive. Think of a time when you had a bunch of deadlines at once or things suddenly changed. How did you stay on top of it all? How did you make sure everything got done on time and to the right standard?
Even if you don't have some super fancy system, just being able to explain how you approach things shows them you think things through and you're organized, which is super important in any job, but especially in mineral processing.
Absolutely. And guess what? RoleCatcher's AI can give you feedback on this too. You can practice your answer, and the AI will analyze it. It'll give you tips on how to structure your response, what details to focus on, and even how to adjust your tone of voice so you sound confident and in control.
It's incredible, like a personal coach for handling tough situations.
Yep.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part, but we've only just scratched the surface of what it takes to ace a mineral processing engineer interview. In the next part, we'll dive even deeper into more specific questions and strategies, so stick with us.
All right, let's jump back into those interview questions. You know practice makes perfect, or at least it makes you sound a lot smoother when they throw you a curveball.
For sure. And that's where RoleCatcher's AI tools can be so helpful. You were telling me they have this whole library of interview questions for different jobs with tips on how to answer each one.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like having a secret weapon, especially for a question like, how do you ensure that mineral processing operations comply with environmental regulations and standards?
Okay, so sustainability is a big deal these days. It's
Yeah.
not just about digging up rocks anymore.
Nope, not at all. Companies are under a microscope to minimize their impact on the environment. So when they ask you this question, they're not just testing if you know the rules, they want to see if you're actually committed to responsible mining.
That makes sense. So how do you show them you're not just going to do the bare minimum, that you're actually going to be a champion for sustainability?
It's all about showing that you go above and beyond. Have you ever gone out of your way to put environmental safeguards in place? Or taken the initiative to reduce waste? Maybe you helped develop an environmental management plan or worked on a project to rehabilitate a mine site.
Those are great examples. It's about being proactive.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mention the specific regulations and standards that apply to the job you're going for. It shows you've done your homework and you're serious about this stuff.
So it's about finding that balance between showing you care about the environment and showing your technical knowledge.
You got it. Now let's switch gears to another question that can trip people up. How do you manage risks associated with mineral processing operations?
Okay, risk management. That sounds like a minefield all on its own. What kind of risks are we talking about here? And how do you convince them you can handle the pressure?
Well, mineral processing has some inherent dangers, right?
Yeah.
Heavy machinery, sometimes hazardous materials, even just the environment of a mine site itself. They want to see that you're proactive about safety for yourself and for everyone on your team.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm a safe worker.
Definitely not. Be ready to talk about specific strategies you've used for managing risk. Have you ever done a risk assessment, developed safety protocols for handling dangerous materials, or implemented training programs for your team?
Those are really practical examples. It shows you've actually thought about these things. You're not just going to wait for something bad to happen before you do something.
Exactly. And once again, this is where RoleCatcher's AI feedback tool can be super helpful. You can practice answering this question, and the AI will analyze what you say, It'll give you tips on how to structure your answer, what to emphasize, even how to adjust your tone of voice so you sound confident and competent.
That's amazing, like having a personal risk management consultant in your pocket. Speaking of which, I know a lot of people going into these interviews are early in their careers. Is there a question that's aimed specifically at people who don't have a ton of experience yet?
Absolutely. One that comes up a lot is, can you describe your experience with plant commissioning and startup? Now, if you're fresh out of school, you probably haven't led a whole commissioning project from start to finish, and that's okay.
So how do you answer this if you haven't actually commissioned a whole plant before?
The key is to focus on what you do know. Have you taken any courses on plant design or operations? Have you done any simulations or lab experiments where you had to set up and run a mini processing circuit?
Good point.
Yeah.
Even if it's on a smaller scale, it still shows you understand the basic principles.
Right. And don't be afraid to talk about internships or co-op placements where you got hands-on experience in a mineral processing environment. Even if it wasn't directly related to commissioning, you can still talk about what you learned and how it prepared you for the challenges of plant startup.
So it's about connecting the dots for them, showing how your experiences, even if they're not a perfect match, have given you the skills and knowledge to succeed in this role.
Precisely. And this is another place where RoleCatcher's CV resume builder can be really helpful. Their AI can analyze your experience and skills, match them to what the job description is asking for, and highlight the most relevant stuff for you to focus on in your interview.
That's smart. Okay, we've talked a lot about technical skills, but what about those all-important soft skills? Are there any questions that are aimed at those?
Definitely. A question like, how do you manage and develop your team of mineral processing professionals, is all about figuring out your leadership potential, even if you're not applying for a management position right now.
Okay, so how do you show leadership skills when you're just starting out?
Think back to any group projects you've worked on, whether it was in school or at a previous job. Did you take on a leadership role? Did you help motivate your team members, delegate tasks effectively, or resolve conflicts in a constructive way?
Those are great examples. It's about showing you can work with others and achieve a common goal.
Exactly. And even if you haven't officially been a leader, you can still talk about how you approach teamwork. Are you good at explaining complex ideas to others? Are you a good listener who values other people's input? These are all important leadership qualities.
And these are all things that RoleCatcher's AI can help you put into your resume and cover letter, right? It's like
Yeah.
having your own personal branding expert.
Absolutely. They have tools that analyze your writing style and suggest improvements to make your application materials more impactful and memorable.
I love that. Okay, we've covered a lot in this section, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface when it comes to acing these interviews. What other nuggets of wisdom do you have?
Well, one question that often catches people off guard is, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the mineral processing industry today? This isn't just about showing that you read industry news. It's about showing you can think critically about the big picture.
Okay, so how do you answer this without just repeating headlines?
Focus on the challenges that really resonate with you personally, or challenges that are particularly relevant to the job you're applying for or the company itself. For example, if you're passionate about sustainability, you could talk about the challenge of making mining and mineral processing less harmful to the environment.
That makes sense. So tie the challenges to your own values and interests.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to suggest some solutions or talk about areas where you see opportunities for innovation. This shows them you're not just pointing out problems, you're thinking about how to fix them.
I like that. It shows them you're a problem solver.
And remember, RoleCatcher can help you stay up to date on industry trends and challenges. Their platform gives you personalized career advice and resources, so you're always informed about what's happening in the field.
It's like having a direct connection to the pulse of the mineral processing world.
Exactly. Now let's move on to a question that gives you a chance to really show your passion. What emerging technologies in mineral processing are you most excited about?
Ooh, this is where you get to geek out a little.
Yeah.
Show them you're not just interested in what's happening now, but that you're excited about the future.
Exactly. This is your chance to talk about the cutting-edge stuff that's really capturing your imagination. Maybe you're fascinated by how AI can be used to make processing plants more efficient, or how robotics can make mining safer and more productive.
So don't just list a bunch of buzzwords. Convey your enthusiasm for how these technologies are changing the game.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to go deeper. Share your thoughts on how these technologies could impact the industry, what challenges there might be in implementing them, and what benefits they could bring.
That's great advice. It shows them you're not just keeping up with trends, you're thinking about what they mean for the future.
And remember, RoleCatcher's AI tools can be a huge help in staying ahead of the curve when it comes to emerging technologies. Their platform gives you access to the latest industry news, research, and insights, so you're always in the know about the breakthroughs that are shaping the future of mineral processing.
It's like having a crystal ball for your career.
Exactly. Now, let's tackle another question that can sometimes throw candidates off. Tell me about a time you faced a technical challenge in mineral processing. How did you approach it? This one's all about showing off your problem-solving skills in action.
Okay, this is where it all comes together. How do you pick a good example that shows what you can do without getting too bogged down in technical jargon?
The trick is to pick a challenge that was both technically tough and something you were personally invested in. Maybe you were tasked with making a flotation circuit more efficient because it wasn't performing well, or you had to find a creative solution to a problem that popped up during a plant shutdown.
So find that balance between technical complexity and telling a good story.
You got it. And remember the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. Set the scene by describing the situation. Explain your specific role and the task you were given. Detail the actions you took to solve the problem. And finally, highlight the positive results you achieved.
That's a great framework. It helps you organize your answers so it's clear and interesting.
And don't forget to emphasize the skills and qualities that helped you overcome the challenge. Did you have to think outside the box? Work with other people. Show that you didn't give up when things got tough. These are all valuable things that interviewers are looking for.
Fantastic advice. It's like a blueprint for the perfect interview answer.
And remember, RoleCatcher can help you polish your answers and make sure they're impactful. Their AI feedback tool can analyze your responses and point out places where you can improve your clarity, conciseness, and overall delivery.
It's like having your own personal speech coach.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears to a question that's about navigating those sometimes tricky interpersonal dynamics. How do you handle disagreements or conflicts within a team? Mineral processing, like any field, involves working with all kinds of people, and conflicts are bound to happen.
That's so true. So how do you show them you're not going to run away from conflict, but that you can handle it gracefully and professionally?
The key is to show that you can listen actively, communicate effectively, and find common ground. Think of a specific time when you successfully dealt with a conflict on a team. Maybe you had to mediate a disagreement between two team members, or you had to speak up for a different approach that you thought would work better.
Those are great examples, and it sounds like the STAR method would be helpful here too.
Absolutely. Describe the conflict, your role in it, the steps you took to address it, and the positive outcome you achieved.
And remember, the outcome doesn't have to be that you got your way. It's more about showing that you were able to find a solution that worked for everyone.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to highlight the skills you use to resolve the conflict. Things like active listening, empathy, or problem solving.
This is such valuable advice. It's not just about technical skills. It's about working well with others, especially when things get tough.
You're absolutely right. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI tools can be super helpful for practicing your answers to these types of behavioral interview questions. Their platform gives you personalized feedback to help you refine your answers and project confidence and competence.
It's like having a personal interview coach right there in your pocket.
Exactly. Now, as we wrap up this part, let's talk about a question that often comes up near the end of an interview, and it's one you can use to your advantage. Do you have any questions for us? This is your chance to flip the script and show the interviewer that you've been paying attention and you're really interested in the role in the company.
Okay, so now it's your turn to interview them. But what kind of questions should you ask? I feel like there's a fine line between seeming curious and seeming like you didn't prepare.
You're right. It's all about asking thoughtful questions that show you know about the company and the role, and that you're excited about the opportunity.
So what kind of questions hit that sweet spot?
You could ask about the company culture, their commitment to sustainability, or their plans for the future. You could ask about the specific challenges and opportunities of the role or the team you'd be joining.
Those are all good questions. It shows you've done your homework and you're not just going through the motions.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask about the interviewer's own experience at the company. People love to talk about themselves, and it shows you're interested in their perspective.
That's a great tip. What about asking about the next steps in the hiring process? Is that a bad idea?
Not at all. It's perfectly fine to say you're still interested and ask about the timeline for a decision.
This is all such helpful information. We've covered a lot in this section, but I feel like there's still more to come.
You're right. In the next part, we'll wrap up our deep dive into mineral processing engineer interviews. We'll go over some final tips and strategies to help you seal the deal and land your dream job.
Okay, we're back. Ready for the final stretch of our mineral processing engineer interview deep dive. Feeling energized and ready to tackle these last few challenges.
That's the attitude. Remember, this is where you really seal the deal. You want to leave them with a great impression.
So what other questions should people be prepared for in this final stage?
Well, there's one that often comes up. Why should we hire you? It can seem a little daunting, but it's actually a golden opportunity to summarize your strengths and show them what you bring to the table.
Right, this is where you really have to sell yourself. How do you balance confidence with, not sounding arrogant?
Think of it this way. You're presenting yourself as the solution to their problem. They need someone to fill this role, and you're explaining why you're the perfect fit.
So connect the dots between your skills, experience, passion, and what the job actually requires.
Exactly. Remind them of your key qualifications. Highlight the experiences and skills that match the job description. And don't be afraid to reiterate your passion for this field and how excited you are about this specific opportunity.
Right, so remind them why you're so excited to be there and what unique value you bring.
Exactly. And this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can be incredibly helpful. Their platform can analyze your resume, skills, and experience. It can match them to the specific requirements of the job and help you create a really compelling narrative that emphasizes your strongest points.
That's incredible. It's like having a whole marketing team working behind the scenes to make you look good.
Precisely. Now let's talk about another question that pops up a lot towards the end. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ah, yes, the classic career goals question. This one always makes me a little nervous. What's the best way to answer it without being too vague or too ambitious?
Honesty and alignment are key. Think about what you really want in your career, and try to connect those goals to the opportunities for growth within the company.
So if you're interested in moving into a management role eventually, it's okay to say that, as long as it makes sense for the company's structure and their growth plans.
Absolutely. But make sure you frame it in a way that shows you're committed to doing a great job in this role first and contributing to the team's success.
So show ambition, but be grounded and realistic.
Exactly. And you don't have to have every single detail planned out. It's fine to talk about a general direction or some skills you'd like to develop. The important thing is to show that you're thinking about your career path and you're eager to learn and grow.
This is great advice. It takes the pressure off of having to have a perfect 5-year plan.
And remember, RoleCatcher can help you explore different career paths and figure out potential growth opportunities within the mineral processing industry. Their platform gives you personalized career advice and resources. You get insights into the skills and experience you'll need to achieve your goals.
That's amazing, like a GPS for your career.
Exactly. Now, let's touch on one last question that's super important to get right. Do you have any questions for us?
All right, this is your chance to show the interviewer you've been listening and that you're genuinely interested in the role in the company.
Absolutely. This is where you can gather valuable information to help you decide if this opportunity is right for you.
So what kind of questions make a great final impression?
Ask questions that show you know about the company, you understand the role, and you're eager to contribute. You could ask about the team dynamic, the company's sustainability initiatives, or the specific challenges and opportunities associated with the role.
Those are great examples. It shows you're not just there for a paycheck, you're really interested in being part of the team and making a difference.
Exactly. And remember, asking insightful questions also gives you valuable information to help you make your decision.
It's a win-win. As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some final words of wisdom for those getting ready for a mineral processing engineer interview?
Preparation is key. Practice your answers, research the company, and be prepared to explain why you're the best candidate.
And don't forget about the amazing resources that RoleCatcher offers. Their AI-powered tools can help you refine your application materials, practice your responses, and even analyze your video performance. It gives you a real advantage.
And most importantly, be yourself. Let your passion for mineral processing shine through. And remember, an interview is a two-way street. It's a chance for both you and the company to figure out if it's a good fit.
So take a deep breath, relax, and go rock that interview.
One last thought for you to consider. As the mineral processing industry keeps evolving, what role do you see yourself playing in its future? Think about your strengths, your passions, and what you want to achieve.
Keep exploring, stay curious, and go make your mark on the world. Good luck.